How to create an identity column in SQL Server. Hi, I am M. Asif Hussain from KnowHow Academy. What are we going to learn in this video? We are going to learn what is meant by identity, how to create a new table using SQL Server Interface. We are going to see how to set up an identity column in SQL Server. By the end of this video, you will get an idea on how you have to set up an identity and what is identity, why do we use identity in SQL Server. My dear viewers, let me ask you a simple question. We all might have used e-commerce platforms such as Flipkart, Amazon, Myntra. Okay, we have a lot of e-commerce platforms. So whenever we are using the e-commerce platforms for the first time, what are the general customer details? We as a customer, what are the general details that we fill up? We give the details of our first name, we give the details of our last name, gender, then we give date of birth, email ID, address for communication, our card details, so pin code, state, country, we give a lot of things and we submit it. Am I right? So now let's consider that in a e-commerce platform of some XYZ e-commerce platform, okay, so there are 77 customers. As soon as we have given some details as next customer, and as soon as we submit it, then in the back-end part, those employees who are working in that particular e-commerce platform, so if they get the database of all the customers, then obviously my details or my information will be saved as 78th customer, as already there are 77 customers. Am I right? So now, how am I getting this 78? Did I enter the value? No. Did I create it? No. Then how am I getting that 78 number? So that's where the identity comes into the picture. So what exactly identity does is that in any particular column, to whichever column you would like to give the identity, generally we give this identity for serial numbers, employee ID, product ID, customer ID, student ID. So all this for these columns we generally give the identity. What identity will do is that it will give every identity unique. Okay, so it will arrange the numbers in a sequence. For example, if I am starting the ID with 1, then the next ID will be 2, then the next ID will be 3. So that's a sequence that the identity will follow. Okay, so now whatever the identity you would like to start with it. For example, if you would like to start the employee ID with 101, so the next identity will be 102, 103. So now the alternate numbers or the next immediate numbers, you can even change it. So I have given one sequence, adding on 101 with adding on 1, it will be 102. So if you would like to add 5, 101 plus 5, 106 will be the next identity number. So that's where identity comes into the picture. So as you can see here, I have the tables, I have a talent database here. So what I'm doing, just I'm right clicking it here and I'm clicking on new table. As soon as I click on this new table, so let me give it as the customer ID. Okay, so as it is an ID, so let me give it as an integer data type. Alright, so now if you see the column properties here, so we have something called as identity specification. Identity specification, it is no, so let me make it to yes. So when I have make it to yes, you can see that the identity increment is 1 and the identity seed is 1. If you would like to start with 1, it will add 1 to the every next identity number. If you would like to start with 101, it will add 1 to every 101, it will give it in a sequence. So that's how it is. Alright, so I have enabled it. So now what I am doing, and I am marking this particular column as a primary key. So now what I am doing, I am creating another column such as customer name. Okay, customer name. So as it is a name, so what I'm doing is that I am just marking it as a varchar data type at the 50 as a size number. So now what I'm doing, I'm just saving this particular table with the table name as CUS underscore table 1. Okay, so now let me click on OK. So as soon as I have clicked on OK, you can see that the table is successfully created. So now what I'm trying to do, I'll just close this one and I'll take a new query. So in this new query, let me go and execute and see whether my table is successfully created or not. So select star from customer T1. So what is happening here? So we have got the columns, customer ID column and the customer name column. Okay, so now let's try to insert the values in it. So the syntax for insert is that insert into table name is customer T1. So what I'm inserting values. So here the logic comes. So what happens when we give the identity is that we don't need to give the ID number. By default, the ID number will be considered or taken by the SQL server itself. Okay, so we should not give it. Just you enter the customer name and you execute. So there is no need of giving the customer ID. So whatever might be the ID where you have given the identity for that particular column. So now what I'm doing, rather than giving the customer ID number, I'm just giving the name, customer name. So such as Asif, my name. So now what I'm doing it here, I'm just executing it. You can see that one row is affected, the query is successful. So if I execute it, you can see that one is Asif. So now what I'm trying to do, let me, as you can see that customer ID is one is automatically now given in the output, right? Because it is an identity. Now what I'm doing, let me print another, or let me give another value for this particular table for the another customer. Let me consider Hussein here, and if I execute it, you can see that again the row, again it is successfully executed, and if you retrieve the table, the ID number is 2. Alright, so it is coming in a sequence. So now what I'll do, let me enter the third record. Okay, so 3 comma, I'm giving the ID number here, 3 comma. So let me consider another name such as Mithal. Okay, so now what I am doing, I am trying to execute it. It is giving us one message. It is an error. What is that? An explicit value for the identity column in a table should only be specified when a column list is used and the identity insert is on. Okay, as we have created the identity for a particular column customer ID, we should not enter the customer ID directly. So what we have to do, we have to do some small setup. So what is that setup? Let me show it to you. So now what I am doing it here, I am writing set identity insert for my table customer T1 on. Okay, on. So what I'm doing, I am telling to SQL server that please enable the facility, please enable the feature for the customer or for the user to insert the customer ID numbers. Don't consider it by your own. Okay, so what I am telling to SQL server, I am telling to SQL server that the user of this particular table wanted to insert the ID numbers also. Okay, so for that what I am doing, I am setting the identity insert for this customer table. I am switching it on. So now when I am trying to insert the values for the third customer, so we have to specify the column names as well. Customer ID, comma, customer name. Okay, customer ID, comma, customer name. So if I execute it, we can see that cannot insert explicit value for identity column customer T1 when identity insert is set to off. Okay, so earlier it was off. Now what we have to do, we have to set it on. So I am setting it on first, then I am trying to insert it by specifying the column names. I am executing it. So one row affected. Excellent. So now what, let me show it the table. So third customer is Mithal. We have got it. Am I right? So this is how you have to set the column name and the identity for that. So now I have a question. So what if the case though the second ID customer data is deleted? Okay, so for that if the data is deleted, if I would like to create the same customer name again, so let me consider, I'll just off this one, I'll execute it. It commands completed successfully. So now what I am doing, rather than giving the customer ID, I'm just entering the name Hussein again. If for example the second customer record is deleted, now I'm again creating this customer name Hussein. So if I execute it, we can see that a new customer ID will be given to that particular same name, but it will not give the same number. Okay, it will not give the same number though it is deleted. Okay, so this is how you have to use the identity column in SQL Server. So in this video, we have learned how to create a table using SQL Server Interface. We also seen how we have to enable or how we have to set the identity to a column in SQL Server. So thank you for choosing KnowHow Academy as your source for IT knowledge. We are always here to help you to navigate the tech world. If you have any questions, do not hesitate to reach out. It's been a pleasure sharing this information with you. Stay curious and keep learning.